Have you ever wondered why the rich seem to pay less in taxes? It's a question that has crossed many minds, sparking debates and discussions. The perception that the wealthy are taxed less than the average taxpayer is widespread and often met with frustration. But is this perception rooted in reality, or is it a common misconception? To truly grasp the answer, we must take a step back and journey into the annals of tax history. To understand this, we need to delve into the history of American taxes. Did you know that there were no federal income taxes in America until 1861? That's right. The concept of the federal income tax as we know it today was a foreign idea to the early American settlers. In the early days, the United States government was primarily funded by tariffs and customs duties. But the Civil War changed everything. The war was an expensive affair, and the government needed a way to fund it. So in 1861, the first federal income tax was introduced as a temporary measure to cover the war expenses. At this time, the Internal Revenue System was established, and an income tax of 3% was imposed on annual incomes exceeding $800. This tax system was not without its critics, and it faced numerous legal challenges. But it was a necessary step at a time when the nation was in crisis. However, this was not the end of the story. After the war, the income tax was repealed, and the federal government once again relied on tariffs and excise taxes for income. It wasn't until the passage of the 16th Amendment in 1913 that the federal income tax was permanently established. This amendment gave Congress the authority to tax income, regardless of the source, without apportionment among the states, and without regard to any census or enumeration. The initial income tax rate was just 1% on net personal incomes above $3,000, with a surtax of 6% on incomes above $500,000. So, the birth of American taxes was born out of necessity during a time of national crisis. It was a measure introduced to fund a war, repealed, and then reintroduced and solidified into the American Constitution. It's interesting to look back and see how the American tax system has evolved over time. How it began as a temporary measure and has now become an integral part of our society. But remember, this was just the beginning. From a temporary measure, income tax gradually became a permanent fixture. The journey to this point in American taxation history is an intriguing one. It all began with the ratification of the 16th Amendment in 1913, a landmark decision that gave Congress the power to tax income directly. Before the 16th Amendment, the US government had primarily relied on tariffs and excise taxes for revenue. But as the nation grew, so did the need for a more robust and reliable income source. The 16th Amendment was a response to this necessity. For the first time in American history, Congress could levy an income tax without having to worry about apportionment among the states or reliance on census results. This was a significant shift. The amendment didn't just change how the government collected revenue, it also set the groundwork for the creation of the modern income tax system. But the road to our current system wasn't a straight one. Initially, the income tax was a mere 1% on net personal incomes above $3,000, and a progressive surcharge of up to 6% on incomes above $500,000. These numbers may seem small, but they marked a major change in American taxation policy. Over time, this system was refined and expanded. Changes in the economy, social conditions, and political climate influenced the evolution of American taxes. During World War I, for instance, the top rate of income tax shot up to 77% to fund the war effort. The Great Depression and World War II saw further changes, including the introduction of payroll withholding and quarterly tax payments. However, as the tax system grew more complex, so did the opportunities for evasion. The very nature of taxation, the act of taking money from citizens based on their income, opened the door to manipulations and exploits. Tax loopholes became a part of this evolving system, a byproduct of its complexity and the constant push and pull between different interests. As the tax system evolved, so did the loopholes. And as we'll see in the next scene, these loopholes have had a significant impact on how the wealthy navigate the system. The rich have always found ways to minimize their tax liabilities. This statement might sound like a cynical view of the world, but let's delve into the facts. Let's talk about tax loopholes. These are simply provisions in the tax code that allow people to reduce their tax liabilities, often in ways that lawmakers didn't quite anticipate. And it's no secret that the wealthy are particularly adept at finding and utilizing these loopholes. For example, consider the carried interest loophole. This is a little-known provision of the tax code that allows hedge fund managers and private equity executives to have their income taxed at the capital gains rate of 20%, rather than the ordinary income rate of nearly 40%. This can result in savings of millions of dollars for a single individual. Then there's the estate tax, often referred to as the death tax. This tax is levied on the transfer of an estate of a deceased person. However, through careful estate planning and by utilizing various trusts and foundations, many wealthy individuals can significantly reduce the amount of estate tax they owe. And let's not forget about offshore tax shelters. These are foreign accounts or companies where the wealthy can stash their money to avoid taxes. Although these practices have come under increasing scrutiny in recent years, they still remain a popular method for the wealthy to reduce their tax liabilities. These loopholes and strategies contribute to the perception that the rich pay less in taxes. They allow the wealthy to legally reduce their tax liabilities, often to levels far below what ordinary wage earners pay. This can create a sense of injustice and fuel the belief that the tax system is rigged in favor of the wealthy. However, it's critical to remember that these loopholes are not illegal. They are simply the result of a complex and often convoluted tax code. And while they certainly provide benefits to the wealthy, they are not the sole reason for the wealth disparity we see today. But this is not the whole story. Contrary to popular belief, the rich do pay a significant amount in taxes. Let's take the time to delve into the numbers and understand how this works. According to the Internal Revenue Service's data, the top 10% of income earners in the United States pay more than half of all federal income taxes. This figure might seem surprising to many, but it is a result of progressive taxation, a system used by many countries, including the United States. In a progressive tax system, the tax rate increases as the taxable amount increases. The concept behind this system is to distribute the tax burden more heavily onto those who have more financial means, the wealthy. It's based on the principle that those with higher income, and hence greater ability to pay, should contribute more towards the funding of public services. However, the progressive tax system is not as straightforward as it may seem. While the tax rate does increase with income, high-income individuals often have access to tax planning strategies that can reduce their effective tax rate. These strategies can involve using tax deductions, credits, and loopholes that are often not available or applicable to those with lower incomes. For instance, capital gains, which are a significant source of income for many wealthy individuals, are taxed at a lower rate than regular income. This is one of the reasons why some billionaires can end up with a lower effective tax rate than a middle-class worker. However, it's important to remember that these are legal strategies that are a part of our current tax system. They are not necessarily a reflection of an individual's desire to avoid paying taxes, but rather a reflection of the complexity of our tax system. So, are the rich really paying less in taxes? It's a complex issue. The answer is yes and no. While they do pay a significant amount in absolute terms, the effective tax rate can be lower due to the various deductions, credits, and loopholes available within our tax system. We've traveled through time and looked into the complexities of the American tax system. It's been quite the journey, hasn't it? We've explored the birth of American taxes born out of necessity and conflict. We've seen how they've evolved over the centuries, adapting to the changing times and economic conditions. We've also delved into the intricate world of tax loopholes. These are the clever, often complex strategies employed by those with ample resources to minimize their tax liabilities. It's an area that can seem shrouded in mystery and controversy, but it's an integral part of the tax landscape. We then confronted the truth about taxes and the wealthy. It's a topic that's often oversimplified in public discourse, but as we've discovered, it's far more nuanced. The wealthy do pay taxes, but the real question is whether they're paying their fair share, considering their vast resources and the many tax advantages available to them. But remember, this isn't just about pointing fingers or stirring up emotions. It's about gaining a better understanding of our tax system, its history, and its implications. It's about seeing the bigger picture and asking the tough questions. Understanding taxes is crucial for every taxpayer. It's not about who pays more or less, but about understanding where our money goes and why.